welcome to today's NEASC Virtual Global Forum, Reflections on Virtual Accreditation Visits. I'm Bill Worley, Associate Director of the NEASC Commission on Public Schools. Working with me today is Allison Geary, Deputy Director of the Commission on Public Schools. The goals for today's conversation is to give you a behind-the-scenes look at NEASC virtual accreditation visits from the perspective of host schools and the volunteers serving on visiting teams. We have a lot to cover. We'll start with an overview of the virtual accreditation visit process, followed by a discussion with our guests. And now I'd like to hand things over to my co-host, Allison.
Hi, everybody, and welcome back to our forums. We've taken a couple months off, so I was feeling a little nervous today when we started. It's been a little while since we did this, but I'm so glad that we're back and that we're able to share some information about virtual visits with you. When I think back to almost a year ago in March of 2020, I recall the last in-person accreditation visit I did, which was a visit to Natick High School in Natick, Massachusetts on March 8th through 11th. It was just a few days before everything shut down here on that Friday in the US. There was so much unknown at that time, and we hoped that we might be able to do a few of the visits we had scheduled for the spring of 2020. Obviously, that did not happen, and all of our accreditation visits across NEASC were canceled in the spring of 2020. As we faced the unknown future for the fall of 2020, we decided that we did not want the hard work of schools to go without acknowledgement. We determined that we would try to do virtual visits to every school who was willing to move forward, knowing that many of the schools had been ready for their visits in the spring of 2020, but did not have the chance to complete them. We got to work developing a protocol for virtual visits and training our visitors and schools to be able to complete them. NEASC completed 91 virtual accreditation visits in public schools in the US and international schools around the world last fall. We are fortunate to have representatives from 7 schools today that participated in those visits, either as chairs and team members or as principals or heads of schools. And they are going to share some of their experience and their wisdom with us today. And we certainly encourage you to ask any questions that you might have as we go along. Put them in the Q&A for us so that we can ask those questions as well. All right, so let's get started. So first I'm going to have the panelists introduce themselves. Let's start with Christine, and then Patty and Mark.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Christine Page. I'm the principal at West Bridgewater Middle Senior High School. It's a school that houses students in grades 7 through 12, located south of Boston. And we just had our accreditation this past November.
Hello, my name is Patty Marshall, and I'm the head of school at the American School of Guatemala in Guatemala City. We have 1,640 students. We're pre-K through 12 independent day school, and we just had our virtual visit this past fall.
Well, I'm Mark Schultz. I'm the Deputy Director at Zurich International School in Switzerland. We've got 1,200 kids preschool through grade 12 spread across 3 separate campuses. I was involved in a virtual visit to another school in Europe in September last year, and then led our own visit in November. So it was a good learning opportunity for both. Currently, we have our upper school and middle school off campus and online, and our lower school kids have been live the whole way through. Thank you.
Terrific, thank you. Let's do Artis, John, and Shirley.
Hello, everyone. My name is Artis Street. I am the instructional transformational coach at the Jeremiah E. Burke High School, 9 to 12 high school, part of the Boston Public School District. We are currently in a hybrid model learning mode with our high needs students. I've been on several NEASC visits and a virtual visit as well with another high school. So welcome.
Hi, everyone. My name is John Clements. I am co-principal of Nipmuc Regional High School in Upton, Massachusetts. And I had the pleasure of chairing a decennial visit an accreditation visit to a local Massachusetts high school. And I'm really glad to be with everyone today.
Hello, my name's Shelly Jackson. I'm the head of the primary school at Rugårds International School in Copenhagen. We have about 1,000 students altogether, 500 in the international section and 500 in the Danish section. At the moment, our primary school age children are in school as of yesterday, and our secondary school are hoping to come back on the 1st of March.
And sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, I was just going to say, and I also did a virtual visit last November to another school in Europe.
Terrific. And last but definitely not least, Karl Johnson.
Karl Johnson, I'm principal at Plainville High School in Plainville, Connecticut. We have 670 students, 9 through 12. We've been full in person since October 5th with a modified schedule for the day. And also had the pleasure of doing a virtual visit this fall along with our own visit at our school.
Terrific. Thank you. Thank you all for being here today. So we're going to start out with our principals. So Christine, Karl, and Patty all hosted visits. Oh, and Mark, sorry, I don't know why I didn't put that on those. And Mark, I guess I'm thinking of you anyway. So we have a couple people that are wearing both hats today, but let's start with Christine, Karl, and Patty. So can you tell us about how did you make the decision to move forward with your visit this fall? Did you think about postponing it? And how did you decide to go ahead and move forward? So let's start with Christine and then Patty and Karl.
Sure. We didn't want to postpone. I think we all knew that through the self-reflection in the collaborative conference that it was almost like getting ready for a game. We were ready. We felt good about working through with our team. We were actually supposed to have our decennial visit the weekend when everything shut down back in March. Mm-hmm. So when we were notified to are you interested? We were absolutely yes. We wanted to be able to show the work that we had done. We were looking for feedback from NEASC, so we were ready to go and working with the NEASC committee, and they were very helpful. They were great to go back and forth with and deciding is this a good thing to do, and we felt that it was, and we're so happy that we did it.
Awesome. Patty?
I think the same for us. We had about 30 seconds where we thought, oh no, what are we going to do with our virtual visit? And then we quickly refocused. There were so many things in chaos in the spring, but we realized this was much bigger than a temporary situation. This was about the school and the work that we've been building for the past couple of years. And the feedback we would get would steer us for the next few years ahead. So it was a no-brainer for us to go forward.
Karl?
Yeah, so we actually, we had thought about postponing it, I guess more so than the other two people. I had actually responded to a survey, I think, in the spring or in the summer, just saying, whatever was best for NEASC, if we could do it. And then Allison had reached out to me to schedule it, and it kind of took me by surprise because I think I had forgotten I had responded to the survey. After talking with the chair, who happened to be Allison, and talking with the people at our school, we realized we had put the work in already. We were ready to do this. We were confident that we could, make it happen. It ended up being a very positive experience. So we're definitely glad we did it.
And I remember you saying when we were doing the visit, it's so nice to focus on something other than COVID. Like we're thinking about our strategic priorities rather than thinking about sort of day-to-day kind of stuff.
It was, I remember saying that, and, it forced us to, talk about the work we do, consistently all the time, except for the immediacy of trying to manage everything that's going on this year. So it was definitely helpful. And, and I think in many ways we talked about kind of re-entry points for a lot of the work that we had been doing when we hit pause in the spring.
Yeah. I muted myself and I started talking. Mark, let me ask you to answer the next question. You can do it both as a chair and or as a principal. What do you think was gained or lost by doing the visit virtually?
I think the gains were both for the school and for the organisation, that it was almost business as usual. In spite of everything that was going on, and as the three previous speakers alluded to, it gave people an opportunity to focus on some big picture stuff that was really important. We as a school had a strategic review going on in parallel, so it was really important for us for the time sequencing of that to both come to fruition at the same time. So that was a real gain that we pushed through with both of those, big picture items. The losses were from a school standpoint, whilst we feel that we were captured well, it's just not the same. There are so many good things that happen on a live visit that you really can't experience unless you're physically there. The sense of feeling and seeing and smelling the school and the community in that sense. Having said that, a high quality internal reflection and the same sort of structure that goes on a normal visit still gives great insight. And I think certainly the teams I've been involved in and our own visit were really insightful, helpful, and of a similar quality to what you'd get from a live visit as well. So more pros than cons. One of the losses from a team standpoint is you don't get to know your team colleagues. I mean, normally that's a great part of the visit. The connections you make, the learning you get from those colleagues as you're sitting around of an evening, that just doesn't happen. And that's a loss more for the team itself rather than the process in that sense.
Absolutely, yeah. Let me stay with our principals just for this question, and then we'll move on to our chairs. So Patty, Christine, and Karl, do you want to comment on that? What was gained and what was lost through the virtual visit?
I can start. I think, in the virtual visit, what we gained was actually a concentrated time that the team had with members of our school team, right? The online, you get a lot of discussion, you go through a lot of information, a lot of detail. I don't know how it felt for the chairs that visited, but for us, it was kind of seamless to go from meeting to meeting to meeting without really interrupting the order of the day. I think what was missing is the beauty of our school, and I'm sure many of your other schools around the world, is that there's some magic that happens on campus with kids and with teachers, and you can see the story of the school living out, right? And I think that's missed in a virtual. But we had a very successful virtual visit, and I was very pleased with it overall.
Yeah. I would concur with what Patty just said. I think one of our biggest strengths is our culture, our school culture, our students, our faculty, and being unable to show that live in person, we felt like maybe we would lose a lot. But in talking with, we were fortunate that our chair for the decennial visit was also on the collaboration conference. So she, at least Kathy, got to be here in person and got a sense of the school culture. So I think that was important. I think that was helpful because she did live it. But I think through, and Patty, what you said, I believe with some of the Zoom conferences and the conversations, they were maybe less amount of people in them. So even with students, so you could have really direct conversations with staff and students in meaningful ways. And I think that helped the visiting team to get a sense of who we were and what we were all about.
Yeah, I would echo a lot of that. And, one thing I think it didn't occur to me at first, but I think the speed at which the visiting team was able to visit classrooms virtually. And I think, normally you have to walk around, you have to find your way to classrooms, you have to, you get lost a couple times. But in this scenario, our team was actually able to cycle back through some classes because they were able to move to them when they were doing their observations. So I think they really got a very strong sense of what was, the teaching and learning that was happening during those days. And I think, like other people said, I think the unplanned interactions that occur when you're in person and walking around a building and getting to talk to people and interacting with people, obviously that's, something that's hard to replicate.
Terrific. Thank you. I see those questions coming in on the Q&A, and I just want to ask a couple more, and then we'll take a look at some of those as well, because there's some great questions on there. So let me move to our chairs. So I know that you have all been on multiple visits. And so just a question, what was different about doing a virtual visit than a regular in-person visit? And certainly that question about, what was gained and what was lost. So let's start with John, and then we'll go to Artis and Shirley, and then circle back to Mark.
Sure, yeah, happy to weigh in on this. When I answer this question, I want to go to my favorite moment of going out and doing visits, and I've had the chance to do 10 or 12 over my career, and always find them to be a great opportunity for professional collaboration, and to be part of another school community is such a powerful experience. My favorite moment is that first full day at the school, where I'm walking in with a freshman beside me and a senior beside me and a teacher holding the door, and walking into that school and getting that sense of culture and community and presence that I worried in doing a virtual visit that perhaps I wasn't going to be able to experience. I was so pleasantly surprised to find out that it could still happen in a virtual format, that there's a quality of relationship building that can happen in Zoom or over a Google Meet or whatever platform you're using. I would say it's a kind of an equalizing effect, where oftentimes I would find when I was in a meeting with kids or with teachers when being a part of a visit, people tend to turn to the department chair or the principal or the lead in the room. And the equalizing factor of being Zoom or Meet is that everyone has a voice. And so although I didn't get the chance to walk through the doors the same way I did in an in-person visit, I had the chance to develop a lot of really meaningful relationships and collaborate with people in the school and get to know them well. And that was really exciting for me.
Yeah, I think for me, one of the things to recognize is that, first of all, school is dynamic. So going on a virtual visit with NEASC, we were actually experiencing how the students experience school. So you were like in it. You saw the teaching and learning still going on as you observed classes. And when you had conversations with students or when you had conversations with teachers, you kind of listened more, to key words, because you didn't have the distraction of being there physically on the campus. So you kind of listened more. And what I found that, when you look at what the school identified as their strength and areas for growth, it actually came out in the conversation. It actually came out in some of the things that we were observing, through the virtual class visit. I think the main thing for me that was lost, because I think, like John was just mentioning, you got some of those relationships in those conversations, in the virtual conversation, and and more classrooms and look at, multiple learnings, taking place. The other aspect was that as the visiting team collected their notes, all of those notes were shared in a common document, on the drive. So everyone can see the notes coming in real time, and you can actually begin to see the trend of the school culture that we talked about, the processes that are in place in the school. We can actually see them come to life as the reports, the drafts of the reports or the observational notes begin to come in. So it was almost pretty dynamic in terms of the time. So it's still intense, right? In terms of scheduling for the visiting team, where you have back-to-back, observations or back-to-back meetings, but the whole organization part of that made it almost seem like, it was seamless, right? And you still was exhausted, at times, but in a good way, and putting all that together so it can be reported out to the school, in a timely fashion. So there was a lot of, real time, collecting of evidence that really came out of what the strength and the areas of, like I said earlier, the areas of growth for the school that really came out as you did those meetings and those observations.
Maybe if I could just add a couple of things. I think that, as Artis said, the actual scheduling is pretty similar in terms of the structure and the flow of the day. What's missing from the visiting team standpoint, I think, and it goes back to Shirley's word, spontaneous. You don't have the spontaneous opportunity to find another team member who's been in the same meeting and continue the dialogue as you're walking the halls, that sort of thing. So you have to be more deliberate about structuring times for the team to come together just to unload and unpack some of the things. The common recording template. We use the same for the international visits. That's a really helpful tool in terms of consolidating information in the one place while you're physically there. One thing from an international school standpoint, I'm not sure if it happens with internally in the US, is that schools are encouraged, if able, to provide video recordings of lessons in advance. So we had a bank of 70 lessons that we recorded live, just in case we weren't live on campus when the visitors arrived. And I know that was really helpful for the visiting team. So that's one thing that sort of, you wouldn't necessarily pre-plan that in normal times.
Yeah, I would say the same, Mark, that we also received a lot of pre-lessons before we actually started the week. So I would say that we started more or less 2 weeks beforehand with quite a few meetings with the head, and obviously looking at all of these pre-lessons. Also the head of the school we were going to did a whole hour of just going around the campus and showing the facilities, showing the grounds, showing the classrooms, showing the walls, everything that you would see in a real visit. She went around the whole school showing us virtually, and that was really useful as well. Also videos of the staff. Every staff member introduced themselves in a video beforehand, and we sent the video to them of ourselves as well. So there was lots of things going on in that 2 weeks before we actually started the visit. And anybody who's thinking of doing a visit, I would say that was a really key thing, that we started really early, because, you know, in the week it is tight and it's very structured, and you've got a lot of structured meetings. So, you know, anything that can be done beforehand was actually really useful. And as you said, with the shared documents coming in, it really is a live working document that you can see everybody's thoughts coming in, because you can't talk in the corridors as you're going along. So having everything on a shared document so you can see everybody's comments is really, really useful. Then you can begin to see what sort of things that will be coming out in the report at the end of the week.
John, go ahead.
Sure, yeah, great answers by panelists. Just to add in, you know, the beginning part of the visit remains very much focused on meetings with teachers and meeting with students in priority areas, and you know, building those relationships and getting to know a little bit more about the school. As the length of the visit goes on, you end up shifting more towards team time. And that point that Mark made about being deliberate and intentional about scheduling opportunities for team members to debrief and collaborate and share ideas is really, really important. Also, from my end as the chair, I was very much conscious of Zoom fatigue. So whereas our team would typically in person head back to a hotel, have dinner together, and spend a portion of the evening working together, I really tried to get people off the screen as much as possible. So we would wrap up in the early afternoon, and then in the evenings, I held sort of 2-hour open drop-in sessions for people to drop in if they needed some support. And it was busy, but busy with different people and allowing people to take care of the concerns at home. You know, we weren't having dinner at a restaurant, we were having dinner at our own kitchen table. So kind of allowed them to customize their schedule more, step away from the screen, but also have built-in opportunities to collaborate and be sure we were doing right by the school.
Yeah, and I think it is important to say too that, you know, sometimes when we try to recruit team members, they have difficulty because they have home responsibilities. They're not able to leave, you know, for 2 or 3 or 4 days to do that. And so this virtual process has allowed some folks to experience a visit that never went before because they weren't able to. And so, you know, I think that's been, to me, a silver lining as well, is that we're able to get, you know, more visitors who are able to participate. Let's talk about some advice. So if you were to give advice, principles to principals who are about to embark on a virtual visit, let's say this spring or even next fall, what would be some of the things that you learned from your visit that you would like to pass on, that you think it's important for people to know or remember? So Patty, let's start with you, and then we'll go to Mark and Christine.
Okay. Well, gee, first of all, listening to some folks online today, I wish we probably reached out to more schools. I love some of the ideas that you guys were sharing about what other schools did. Big advice is make sure all of your links are working. We're a Google school, and classrooms tend to be kind of locked out for visitors coming in. And we made the assumption that if we shared just the link, our chairs would be able to go in and visit the classroom. And I think the first day we had a few snafus on our links, and we were still learning the ins and outs of how to manage and navigate Google for visitors to come in and observe. So just make sure you test all your technology and all of your links, and make sure that they work so it doesn't hold up the visitors.
I'd echo John and Shirley's comments about the pre-work is really important, more so than a live visit. You can't have too many conversations with the key people who are based on the school campus that you're visiting from an infrastructure, tech, logistics standpoint, but just the cycle of the week and the flow, because you don't really have the opportunity to find the person you need if you want to restructure something during the day. Another helpful piece, we had a WhatsApp group set up amongst team members for those times when, for some reason, the class wasn't where they were supposed to be or whatever. That really helped. But I think, I'd say the team members I've been with, both on the receiving end and the delivering end, really still enjoyed the whole process. And I think that's a really important part of it, to emphasise that the school gets a lot out of it, but the people participating in those teams, it's still the best professional learning I do on a regular basis. So I think that's an emphasis that can be then played back to the school as well, that you should now be looking to reach out and support those organisations by coming forward as well. But pre-work is really important.
Thanks.
I concur with both Mark and Patty. And to Patty's point in reference to the Google Classroom Meets, we actually, in speaking with our tech director prior to the visit, created school Google accounts for each of our team members. So that way there was no having to invite them into each meet and so forth. So they all had school accounts for the duration of their visit, which I think was really, really helpful. And I also agree, Shirley, to your point of the video, creating a video prior to a visiting team coming in to kind of be able to give a glimpse into the culture, which they were able to see before the actual visit itself, I think gave them a glimpse into the life of, for us, West Bridgewater. So that was helpful. And most definitely having a tech savvy person on your team for any of the quick glitches, because you are on such a schedule on a virtual visit. And we as well had a thread of texts with all our phones of the visiting team, the chairs, in case there was any sort of glitch that we could get to it right away. Because sometimes in a school when you're trying to get a hold of somebody, so that quick being able to check your phone, that link didn't work, we could rectify it very quickly.
Great, thank you. Artis, what about you from the team side? What did you learn that if you go on another virtual visit or chaired a visit, you might incorporate?
Definitely one of the key points is just informing the staff and the teachers, because this was very helpful. When someone came in a room or in a meeting, if they had a hard copy or lesson plan or a presentation that would bring some insight of what the lesson is, that was very helpful. We can quickly, kind of know what's going on, what is expected of the students. So that openness of the visit I had was superb. Every class I went into, as soon as I went into the class, the teacher sent the lesson plan or, the graphic organizers that the students were using that day. So when the student said something or referred to something, I knew exactly what they were referring to. And, being part of those breakout groups, so not shy about putting a visitor with a breakout group or multiple breakout groups, if that's going on, in their Google Classroom through the virtual visit, doing that and just placing them where they can see, or placing the visiting team where they can see where things are, what's going on, at its best vantage point. So I think, that was very helpful as well. And the other thing too is, and one for your student panels, I think it's also important, to allow the students to be on the panel. in terms, there were a couple of student panels where you probably had an advisor or a teacher with them, just because they wanted to be there for technology or whatever in case something would go on. But I believe, like an in-person visit, when you're visiting with a student panel, just allow the students, to take it and, go forth with it. I think it will work well. So it did still come out, well, but I think it makes the students more comfortable and more free to kind of talk about some of the exciting things that are happening, at the school.
I always tell the adults they have to turn off their camera. I don't want to see them or hear from them if they're in the panel.
Yeah, since you mentioned it, Allison, that's a great point. At least, in our district, there's a lot of students who are shy about turning their camera on. Don't read in too much to that if a student doesn't turn on their camera, or they don't have, maybe they're not unmuted all the time, because students are also dealing with their home life. They may have other siblings who are in school. It could be loud. There could be something going on in the background. So if a student don't have on their camera, in a meeting or in a classroom, just don't read too much into that, in a sense that to kind of make a sense of why they don't have that camera on.
Yeah. Thank you.
And last thing too is remember that participation in a virtual environment looks a little different than in person. Chatting, when a kid put in a chat or when a kid raised their hand or used the emojis, all of that is participation, right? All of that is engagement and getting feedback, so you also, again, I mentioned earlier, at sometimes in the visit, you change your perspective to a virtual learning lens and not an in-person visit lens.
Yeah. One thing I just want to highlight from a couple of you have said, I think the classroom visits are the trickiest part of the virtual visit. So trying to pay as much attention to the classroom visits, both with the technology piece and Artis, I love what you said, to have them, the teachers sending along something to help you to know what's going on in the class. I think both of those are great suggestions to make that go smoothly, because I do think that's the trickiest part based on the visits that I've been on. John, I think that you had something on that.
I was just going to mention, I know it's come up several times about the logistics and the organization. I couldn't agree more with that. I would just add that the best way to approach that is through the idea of relationships and to treat these as opportunities for collaborative problem solving. Going virtual, facing the pandemic, all the challenges that we have, there's a lot of details to work out. But I never felt like as the chair, I was working on that alone or that the principal was working alone. Instead, we scheduled times, Zoom sessions in advance. And I think what happened through that is not only did we come up with strong logistical solutions, but we immediately became on the same page of working as a team, problem solving together. And that set a tone that I think really carried through the visit, that this wasn't an outside group of people coming in to place judgment. These were fellow educators who were working together to help get a really clear picture of teaching and learning in that community. And I think it begins with the idea of working together. We had a real success in one problem solving. I heard mention, provide virtual tours or videos. We had the school provide that for us. Typically in a visit, there's a building tour section very early on your first day. And we decided to have the kids not tour us through the building, but tour us through student life. That was a decision the principal and I came up with together. The kids told us about school and life and culture and clubs. And from the very outset of the visit, we felt like we were part of that school and getting a clear picture of it. That wouldn't have happened without the relationships informing the logistics.
Yeah, thank you. Shirley and Karl, do you have any words of wisdom that you'd like to impart? Go ahead, Shirley.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, a lot of people have already said a lot of things, but which was true for our visit as well, that one of the things that I really appreciated as the chair, I had a really good tech person, and I can't highlight that enough to say that, that really is the key at the very, very beginning, that all this technology works. because then people can relax and people can just get on with looking at the learning and you know, the reason we're there. So I think, you know, having a person on your team, if you have a team, and also if you're in a school, that as you said at the beginning, you know, that really is key, that technology works. Also for me, on the shared document, I had a brilliant person on my team who put everything in files, really clear labeled files, so that we could constantly find everything really, really quickly. Because the other thing is that the schools are sending in so much information to you that as a visitor, you know, there's a lot going on. So if you've got a person who's really, really organized and really structured and can put everything into really clear, concise files on the shared documents, that's also really, really useful. So that, you know, behind the scenes, I know that's not in the visit, but you know, behind the scenes, that's also really, really helpful.
And that's kind of both, right? That's on the school side and preparing all of their documents and evidence, and on the team side, because you want a collaboration space for the team as well. So yeah. And I think for the school to have a technology person that's assigned to the visit, as you said, that's sort of overseeing the visit is also really important.
Yeah.
Karl? Oh, go ahead. Something else, Shirley?
No, that's okay. Thank you.
Okay. Karl?
No, I was just gonna, you know, I would echo so many things that people said. You know, I think as a principal, when you're planning the visit, I think, like people said, the collaboration with the chair and doing a lot of pre-work, and, you know, I think especially as principal, trying to, you know, game out or kind of model in your head what this is going to look like and try to anticipate any problems or roadblocks that you're going to run into. You know, when we encounter, we wanted the team to talk to our students. And so, you know, one of the things all of a sudden occurred to us is that if we're going to have 20 students or 15 students talking to, you know, the team, we're going to need individual rooms for them so that they can take off their masks and so that they can actually, you know, talk to the team. So we had to, you know, find 16 places where we could place students and they could be safe. And, you know, so that was a little logistical thing to work out. I think as a chair, encouraging during the meetings for people to use the chat box, to leave comments. You know, you are restricted to the amount of time you have. So if someone has something they want to add or they want to share a point, you know, one of the nice things about this is that they can type into the chat box, and when the meeting is over, you can take a copy of that chat box and you have their comments, even if they weren't able to say them during the meeting, which, you know, was helpful. You know, the biggest advice I guess I'd give to other principals, and I think this is, you know, two important things, was one, having a team come in and affirming a lot of the work that you're doing in your school. It's an incredibly powerful thing at this moment. I think even more powerful than maybe at other moments in time. You know, as a principal, it's, you know, I always say this, I don't want to say it too often to my staff of how much I appreciate how much they're working and how hard they're working and what they're doing for our kids. But, you know, to have someone on the outside come out and affirm a lot of those things too, it can be really powerful for staff right now. And then also too, I think, you know, just the realization, I think this was part of what pushed us to doing the visit, was just realizing that everyone is living through this right now. And every educator that's coming to your building right now is experiencing this in one way or another. So the level of understanding obviously is there about what's happening. So.
Thank you. I had that thought, I think, when John was talking, and it's just this idea of sort of grace, right? Is that, and as we're sending folks out, I mean, we are telling them, you know, we are all in this pandemic together. You know, we're not out there looking, you know, we're out there again, trying to look at that big picture to see sort of where the school is and where they want to go and how we can support them to get there. And so I think that, I feel like all the visitors and the teams, certainly the ones that I worked with this fall, I mean, that sense of like, let's just all do the best we can. You know, we're in this kind of crazy situation. Let's make it happen as well as we can. And so thank you for highlighting that. A couple of people also highlighted just this idea of a back channel, like certainly like a text chain or a WhatsApp chain between team members, and then maybe one with the principal on it, so that if you can't find something or something's going wrong, you have that. And it's just when you're in person, you don't need that because you can just go find the person and talk to them, but you do need it when you're on the visit. So we encourage that both for schools and also for teams. There was a technical question here I just wanted to ask quickly. What platform was used to share the videos you sent to the team members? Mark, do you want to answer that? What platform did you use? Go ahead, Mark.
Yeah, what we did, we put it all on our Google Drive. And as I think Christine said, we set up Google accounts, school accounts for the visitors. And rather than sending them endless stuff, we created a space on the drive exclusively for the visitors where we put all of the pre-stuff that we'd done, but then also those recordings as well. And then they were able to access them at their leisure. And that was a really helpful piece, having everything in one place. And it goes back to what Shirley was saying. Even the stuff that were, all the links that were part of the internal reflection report, anything that was evidence, anything they saw or needed to see, we had a version or the host copy of that on one site, and they had access to that nonstop well in advance.
I don't know if anybody else did recorded lessons, but okay. All right. So we just have 5 minutes. I want to give everyone a last word of some kind. So think of maybe one piece of advice, one summation that you'd like to just share with the audience. Thank you also for everyone who's on the Q&A. There were a lot of great questions. Many were answered by our staff. Certainly, if you have other questions, please reach out to the liaisons in your commission, and we're more than happy to work with you and help you to facilitate these visits happening. So I'm going to start with Christine, Patty, Mark, Artis, John, Shirley, Karl. That's how I see you, but I'll give you a little heads up. So Christine, last words.
Sure. I mean, I think we're all in the business. We're in the people business. We, love working with people, but because of COVID and the way that this had to come and being forced into a virtual type of situation with the visit, don't be afraid. It's good. It will go smoothly. The chairs are amazing. And to John's point about building that relationship and rapport back and forth with the chair as much as possible, I think really helps it to go smoothly, and you can do it. It sounds scary because it's all tech, but it really was a great experience for us.
Thank you.
Yeah, I agree with Christine. Go for it. I saw our school shine in an incredible way in this format. It just proved that the systems we've built for regular school or normal school, whatever that is anymore, still functions in this new way. And our school shined for visitors, and it was still a wonderful experience. We learned a lot. We took away a lot. So I would do it again.
From a school standpoint, I think it's a good opportunity for faculty to really have an opportunity to be recognised for the great stuff that they're doing, but also for them to think about the good things that are happening in school and share them out, rather than just focusing on surviving day to day. So it was actually tiring and exhausting for the team and our host school, but the positives that came from it, I think from our faculty, actually gave them a lift in what's normally a very stressful situation. So go.
Thank you.
Yeah, I would say just jump in. I mean, the whole virtual visit actually kind of talks to what NEASC accreditation is all about, because it really shows how the school responded to shifting to a virtual environment, and looking at those different components of the standards. So I think you have nothing but to win in this case. So just jump in and let your school shine and how you support student learning.
I want to go back to Karl's point earlier about being so impressed and proud of the work that teachers are doing every day. And I think of how much has changed for educators over the course of the past year, and how much we've learned and new solutions to problems we never anticipated. And I think that when the world gets healthier and we get back to business the way we want to be doing business as educators, it's not going to look the same, because we have learned lessons that will carry forward into this new environment. And I see this process as a way to find the opportunity in the crisis and to allow the standards to really inform our compass point and help us shape the direction where we're headed and the lessons we are learning from COVID education in order to take, not only survive and keep head above water, but to take a leap forward when we're back and healthy again.
Yeah, I would say the same, that, NEASC is all about the learning and the learning journey and the learning curve. And, I think the thing that heads have to remember as well is that for us who were chairs, it was also a learning curve for us as well. It was the very first time that we had done a virtual visit. So, we are all in this together. And I think, one of you said, just go for it and just do it, because we are all in this together. And that's quite powerful, that it's a great leveler that we're all learning together. So we're all learning together. And for me, it was a very positive experience, and I was pleasantly surprised at how much I got to know the people, the school, the way it worked. And I would say that we certainly gained a lot. Of course, it's never the same as in real person, but it was worth doing. Definitely.
No, my last word would just be, trusting how collaborative this process has become. And in many ways, this has forced, chairs and building leadership teams to become even more collaborative than I think, was initially planned. And, I think just trusting that and believing in that, I just had my first meeting with the principal of the school I'm going to be visiting in March as a chair. And, that was really what I wanted to get across in that first meeting, is just that this is going to be a collaborative process with each other and making sure that's how it's going to happen. So.
You guys are awesome. Seriously. This has been such a fun session to moderate and think about. And, obviously I have my own experiences as well. And I would echo a lot of the things that you said. And I just, from the NEASC perspective, want to emphasize what Karl said, that this is about collaboration, and it's about working to try to support your schools through this difficult time, and also to help them feel good about all the things that they are doing. And I think that is our focus, and that is our hope. So thank you again so much for participating. And let me turn it back over to Bill to finish up for us.
For our panelists, my co-host Allison, and everyone at NEASC, I'm Bill Worley, and we thank you for joining us.